to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome back to the Tuesday edition. It's going to be a hot one.
Oh, yeah.
October 11th.
This is my favorite show of the week. Every week, I think waivers, I say all the time, look, you don't win your championship at the draft, and not every league trades nonstop. You can't always get something to go. But you have waivers in almost every league, and this is where you win the championship, is making these moves the right way. Andy loves the Thursday show, starts of the week. I'm putting my claim on the Tuesdays.
Absolutely. So welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. My name is Mike Wright. I am joined by my co-host, my lovely co-host, Jason Moore.
Lovely, beautiful.
Andy Holloway is out of town. He will be back tomorrow. But until then, we will hold down the fort. You can follow the show on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can follow Jason at JasonFFL, myself at FF Hitman. And if you want to follow Andy, he is at Andy Holloway. TheFantasyFootballers.com is our website, and we have some fantastic articles going up there today. We got our FanDuel studs and duds trying to recapping, as well as a team defense recap. And stay tuned, because I know that the Snap article is coming. People love that.
Everyone's favorite.
It gives you a good look at what are the trends, what are teams doing right now with their players. So before we get into the news, I just want to kind of talk through the Monday game. Did you catch that one, Jason?
Did I catch the game? Yeah, I caught the game. My man Devin Funchess was nowhere to be found.
That was so strange. I was expecting a huge blowout game from Devin Funchess.
We watched the game. I think the big story there from the game clearly has to be Jacquizz Rodgers. Right before the game, the very surprising news came out that Charles Sims, who we knew he was injured,
yes,
but we never heard anything about it being serious, all of a sudden was on IR.
Yeah, I talked about this on the show. I saw Charles Sims get hurt during that game, and he had to crawl off, but no one was talking about it. And then he went back in the game. Everything seemed to be at least okay enough to play. Then he's missing practice, and now he's missing a minimum of 8 weeks. He's on the IR. So I guess that's a little news tidbit. We're jumping ahead. I would say the other big takeaway for me from the game is now people have a taste. Greg Olsen owners have the taste of Derek Anderson throwing him the ball. We talked about this at length, that if you're a Greg Olsen owner, do not worry, because Derek Anderson is going to feed him the ball.
Yeah, that is the reason I moved him up to my number one tight end this week. Granted, he did not get the 3 touchdowns like Martellus Bennett.
Sure.
But I'll take the 180 plus yards. Man, how the mighty have fallen in Carolina. That was one of my bold predictions before the season, was they would return to that form.
That's true.
And looking good. Better than my bold prediction of Ezekiel Elliott.
I imagine all so the people who play Greg Olsen, they're now in the corner scratching. It's like, come on, baby. Give me some more of that Derek Anderson.
Oh, and Derek Anderson just missed him on that wide open touchdown. Greg Olsen should have had a touchdown added.
Are you talking about not the interception?
No. I'm talking when they're on the goal line.
Right, yes.
And he goes across the formation from the right to left, and he just throws it behind him. And so Greg Olsen has to, reach back and still almost caught it.
And it was also very interesting. We had talked about Dirk Cutter hating his offense. All the news trickling out was he's disappointed in Winston. He's disappointed in Sims. And he kind of showed that with, you talked about Jacquizz Rodgers coming from the street. The guy was not signed by a team, gets picked up, and then he gets 35 touches in a Monday Night Football game. Absolutely. And he was okay to start the game. You really saw him wear down, though, towards the end.
I think you saw him wear down towards the middle, but actually at the end of the game, he looked like he was running well again.
Got it back.
He got it back, got his second win, was important, picked up that important third down. We'll talk about him probably more at length in the waiver wire section, because he's going to be one of the waivers that might need to be picked up this week. What else from that game? Anything? I will say this. I brought my wife in to watch that final field goal.
Oh, my
goodness,
because
the drama.
Oh, Aguayo, second-round pick.
My goodness.
They moved up to draft him. look,
would he be missing these field goals if he was drafted in the 5th round?
I don't know, because I will say this. I'm not a kicking expert, but when I watch him kick the ball, he does not look like the other kickers that I'm watching. He does not look like Gostkowski. His mechanics remind me, it's like the Charles Barkley golf swing.
Right.
I mean, there is a herky and jerkiness to this kick. It is not smooth. He looks very strange compared to the other kickers, and he's missing a lot.
Yeah, that was an intense moment. I've never been more excited for a 1-4 team facing off with a 20-yard field goal. I was like, I don't know if I was rooting for him to make it or rooting for him to miss it.
I don't know what I was.
I think my words said, "Come on, you got to make this kid like do yourself a favor." But I think there was a part of me that wanted to see the complete collapse.
It was reminding me of do you remember the Steelers kicker debacle from last year, where they just kept cycling through, and then it got to the point where Tomlin was like, "I'm not kicking any more field goals."
Yeah, 2-point conversions, everything, going for it on 4th.
All right, well, let's move into the newts. The newts?
The newts.
The newts
the
and
newts
notes.
and nose.
News and notes from around the league.
The newts and nose.
The newts and nose. It's a new segment coming next week.
All right, we talked about it. The Bucs have placed Charles Sims on the injured reserve. Jacquizz was very decent for fantasy production in a fill-in role. Would you consider him a high-level handcuff, or just, the backup now to Doug Martin, who we expect to be ready after the bye week?
No, I think that he would be more towards a handcuff because
It's a mini one. It's muted.
it's a handcuff.
More of a whisper.
It's a whisper, but it's still a deep voice. He's a handcuff. The reason is because he is, more of that early down runner capable than Sims. He is not nearly the pass catching back that Charles Sims is. So when Doug Martin comes back, I don't expect Jacquizz Rodgers to be as involved as Charles Sims. Maybe he'll be as involved, I guess. I shouldn't say that, but I don't think he'll be as successful. When I watch how he catches the ball, how he moves with it right after the catch, he doesn't have as quick a first move when he gets the ball in his hands. But he looked, who he reminded me of a lot? Like, whole game, he looked like a slightly slower version of Devonta Freeman. That's what he looked like.
That's fair. He has the Atlanta pedigree.
There you
as
go.
well in his background.
And so I think he's good. I'm gonna bid pretty heavy on him. I don't think there's a lot of great options this week. So
sure, we'll get more into that a little bit later. Broncos coach Gary Kubiak will not make the trip to Thursday's night game in San Diego. He is said to be dealing with a complex migraine condition. Gary Kubiak was also the coach that back when he was in Houston had that situation where
stroke, man.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was a stroke.
I think it was a mini attack. I think he had a mini stroke during the game.
Yeah, he went down and it was a serious thing.
I'm happy to hear he is not going with
gonna
the team.
push it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is, when you got something serious like that, look, get well, Gary. Does this affect the offense?
I don't think so. I think that it's business as normal.
Did Gary call the plays?
I don't believe so. So
yeah, we'll have to look that up. I think that if he's the one calling the plays normally, then of course it would affect you anytime you have a change in play caller. But we'll vet that.
Well, it could be a situation like the old show Coach. Did you watch Coach?
Did I watch the best old show of all time? Yeah.
There was I can't remember if it was actual Coach or his assistant coach. He was in the hospital and he's watching the game on TV, and he gets a tell from an offensive lineman. And he can't get it into the into the game because he's in the hospital, and so it's.
I think I remember that. It's good stuff.
If he shakes his butt once, they're gonna run it. Yeah, very very funny stuff. Carson Palmer expected to clear the concussion protocol today. Cardinals have waived the kid they brought up from the practice squad, so the team expects him.
That is always the most telling sign. When they signed the kid off of the practice squad to the team, that was just, you knew Carson wasn't going to play. Now they cut him. He's playing.
Yeah, I would completely agree. Julius Thomas expects to return for week 6. So does Virgil Green, so we get a couple tight end options back. Jeremy Hill, who left the game on Sunday in a heap, is expected to practice on Wednesday, but monitor his situation. This could be a guy that you want to avoid, an injury that he could easily re-aggravate. Cody Kessler has a good chance to play in Week 6. However, the Gladiator, Josh McCown, says that he's going to practice and he believes it is, quote, realistic he could play in Week 6 against the Titans.
Man, that guy, I was telling you at lunch yesterday, there's an old comedy movie where there's the police officer who gets like you've only got 6 days to live, and he needs to die in the line of duty in order for his family to get taken care of. If he dies from this disease, they get nothing. So he's just trying to kill himself as an active duty police officer, and that's what Josh McCown's like, look, I might have to retire in a year or two. I've got a couple games left to murder myself on the field. I have to do it.
He is a monster.
He's
He
great.
is a monster of a man that the abuse that he can take and continues to go back in.
I'll tell you what.
I don't know if he's just is he a warrior or is that just
a fool?
Not the smartest thing to do?
I think that those are not mutually exclusive. I think you
Very
can be
fair.
a very strong warrior who is not making the best decisions.
Sure. Eddie Lacy sprained ankle on the Week 6 status is a we will see. Coach Mike McCarthy confirmed that as well. Randall Cobb has the questionable tag. He took that shot at the end of the game from Landon Collins. It sounds like he'll be fine. That's what Coach Mike McCarthy has said. And in Matt Jones news, Washington coach Jay Gruden has said Rob Kelley has shown he deserves some more carries. So the Rob Kelley preseason hype, maybe it's coming to full fruition here. It only took 5 weeks for the team to say, okay, maybe Matt Jones is not as good as we had hoped. We need to get him some help.
Yeah, this is really bad news for Matt Jones. It's not like as a Matt Jones owner, you were happy with him already. Now you throw in another running back to have to split carries, share the load. I mean, Matt Jones, the reason he was drafted highly this year was 95% opportunity. and 5% something else, and then 0% talent. So, well, all right, I'll give him 4% talent, and 1%'s got to be something else. But this is bad news. I would look. A lot of people in your league, they don't follow the news as well. They won't know that there's an expectation to get Rob Kelley a little bit involved. If he just steals 5 touches a game, I think that's a really impactful thing that is going to hurt the value, the upside of Matt Jones. So I'd look to move Matt Jones in a package deal with this news.
Yeah, sure. And he already has to deal with Chris Thompson as the passing downs running back. So if there's another guy who's eating into Matt Jones, I agree that could be bad news. We'll have to wait and see. This could just be coach speak. We're not exactly sure yet. According to Brandon George of the Dallas Morning News, continues to look like Dez Bryant won't play the Packers in Week 6. Dallas has a Week 7 bye. So for him to miss another game, it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, I think that he should rest. And do you go after Dez Bryant? Do you have confidence that Dez Bryant's going to come back this year at a top-level form?
I'm not trading a great usable asset for him. I've had a lot of questions on Twitter. Hey, should I trade this guy to get Dez and play for the future? Not with that injury.
So you're saying if you've got a Jarvis Landry type, a Julian Edelman, you're not trading any of those guys for Dez. And I would agree with that.
I'm just not all in on Dez.
The final piece of news.
Yes, I threw this in as just
we're both MMA fans, mixed martial arts. We like the U and the F and the C.
Mostly the C part, though. I like the
Greg,
championships.
Have you ever wanted to watch Greg Hardy get beat up? Because I think a lot of people out there have. And
they may have.
He is saying he's going to pursue a career in mixed martial arts.
Okay.
Let the circus show begin.
Okay.
That's a hard thing to jump into late, Greg. But he is, freak athlete. So I'll be watching. See what happens.
All right, let's move to the waivers.
Put me in, coach.
I can see why Andy sometimes has a problem hitting the button on the iPad over here.
Are you gaining compassion for Andy?
Well, my depth perception over here, I was like, I'm tapping it. But I was not actually tapping the button. I was tapping the air.
That's just that has nothing to do with this. That's just a real life problem. If you don't know how far you can touch things, like how far away something is, maybe look into some glasses.
Go to the eye doctor.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk the waiver wire. Wide receiver is the position of the week.
Certainly.
My top pickups from this week are all in the wide receiver. We're going to start with the man on the top because he was on top of the charts last week. That is Sammie Coates, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming off a monster performance, 6 for 139 and 2, 11 targets. He's getting major target volume. This was the first time it paid off with some touchdowns. The yardage we know has been increasing every single week, along with his workload. Pittsburgh has seemed to bury Marcus Wheaton. Darius Hayward-Bay is not a threat to Sammie Coates and his position in the offense. So what are you doing with Sammie Coates?
Well, Wheaton has been coming off of a shoulder injury.
He's coming off being terrible for years.
Sure.
Stop with Marcus Wheaton.
You have seen what you alluded to, I think, is important, the targets, right? He starts the year, and I'm talking about Sammie Coates now, with 3 targets. The last 2 weeks, 8 targets and 11 targets. That's what you want to see, is close to that double digit if you're going to have a confident start in a deep threat type of position. You've got a huge road split for Ben Roethlisberger, home and away, and I expect that you're going to see that same – I mean, it makes sense, right? If Ben Roethlisberger's not tearing it up on the road, I don't think Sammie Coates is going to tear it up on the road. I think on the road you're going to have Antonio Brown getting a larger lion's share. Sammie Coates is certainly someone I would go out and sign because the upside here is –
we've seen it now.
Near Martavis Bryant. He's just not as talented a player as Martavis Bryant. He's not as good at tracking the ball. Certainly not as good at catching the ball.
His hands are questionable.
But the position, the role in that offense for years. I mean, you can go back to when Mike Wallace was tearing it up, and that number 2 wide receiver for Pittsburgh has always been important. Sammie Coates is clearly the most athletic, the guy that in the offseason, both of us, we really loved when the injury came. The suspension came to Martavis Bryant,
right,
and we said, who does this impact the most? It was Coates. Got off to a slow start.
And then you abandoned him. How do you feel?
Well, I abandoned him because it looked like he was abandoned by the Steelers. But the injury to Marcus Wheaton has really given him that opportunity to shine, and he's taken a hold of it. So let's say you're in waiver. Let's say you are in a waiver system. Okay? And you've got the number 1 or the number 2 waiver claim spot. Are you putting a claim in on Sammie Coates?
Team dependent, but more than likely, yes. Sammie Coates, I think, is worth it. I think he is a weekly flex at the worst, and you know the upside is huge. And at home, he's a wide receiver too. If with that wide receiver 1 upside, I was asked, is it going to be crazy? If you playing Antonio Brown, would you also play Sammie Coates? And my response was, if they're at home, heck yeah.
Sure.
I own Antonio Brown in our league of record. I'm still going to be very aggressive trying to get Sammie Coates on my team because I think he's that good. I think he's a valuable asset. Even if I get to the point where I don't want to play both Steelers, I'm going to be able to trade Sammie Coates. If he has another monster game, yeah, I'll be able to trade him for pretty much whatever I want.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if you were able to trade him to yourself because you love Sammie Coates so much, you would give up a lot. I don't know that the average person would give up enough.
I'm saying if there's another performance in the next 2 weeks that is over 100 yards with a touchdown, everyone will be bought in.
Yeah, I can get behind that. And what you mean by it's team dependent, basically if you don't need if you've got good wide receivers.
Yeah, if you already have 4 studs and there's 2 guys who can't even crack your starting lineup.
Keep that. And the reality is the teams that have that first and second waiver priority in a waiver priority system, usually they have a pretty solid team. They haven't been using that waiver. And if that's the case, I would probably hold off for one of these weeks where the running back, there's always that. Right. You know, the week that DeMarco Murray goes down and Derrick Henry can be bought for that number 1 waiver claim or something like that, I would hold off. If you're in a FAAB system, which is our recommended system, you know, I'm willing to drop probably 15 on him.
See, I'm in the low 20s at least.
Then I won't get him in our league.
I'm just saying I'm being very aggressive. So just I'll throw out some quick names and then we'll come back and focus on guys that we want. We got Chris Hogan, who has emerged as the deep threat for New England. Cameron Meredith, who came on extremely strong in the replacement of Kevin White. Jeremy Kerley has shown that he is – the targets are for real for Jeremy Kerley. Michael Thomas, of course, is coming off of the bye week. And Allen Hurns, we have him just as a name to remember where he's coming off the bye, and sometimes people just drop players who are on a bye week because they have to make a decision, and Allen Hurns is worth picking up if he happens to be on your wire.
Any time that there's a team that's on bye, there are quarterbacks often dropped and good, solid players that would not be dropped normally, but you're just forced to. So we like to point those out.
Like this weekend, someone had to drop Blake Bortles in our league. We only have 5 bench spots, so someone had to make a decision. So I was able to pull the sneaky maneuver of I had somebody else who was on, it was Charles Sims or Dwayne Washington got moved out. I moved him to my IR. I had an open spot, picked up Blake Bortles.
So of these remaining wide receivers, you've got guys that are more owned, like Chris Hogan, right? He's owned in 34% of leagues. So there's the 2 guys I want to bring up for me would be Cameron Meredith and Chris Hogan, because those 2 guys are the guys I want the most, and I would say I would rather have Chris Hogan because of the upside of the offense, Tom Brady. Look, Chris Hogan, I've liked him for years. He's just never been in a system that will allow him to use his talents. Well, I don't know many systems better than the Tom Brady-led Patriots to use that, and you saw that in week 1. He got 114 yards off of 4 receptions.
And he had to go out twice for a concussion check. So he had to miss time in the game. He could have had an even bigger impact.
Yeah, so Chris Hogan, definitely worth picking up. Cameron Meredith, the reason that I like Cameron Meredith, we saw him kind of as a spot start should Eddie Royal be out of the game. But what's happened is he has actually replaced the Kevin White role.
Yes.
And Eddie Royal played last week. He stayed in that spot, and you just saw that same position, right? Quarterback locks into a position, the X or the Y or the Z on the field. And when Cameron Meredith comes into the Kevin White role, and you saw that that's the role that Brian Hoyer was targeting, I expect Cameron Meredith to continue seeing those targets. We talked about yesterday, while Hoyer has been the quarterback, Alshon Jeffrey is the 3rd or 4th highest targeted on his team. So Cameron Meredith is available in your league. He's owned in 1.6% of leagues.
And while Hoyer has taken over, he's now the quarterback. He's been the quarterback 3 in that time period.
That's nuts.
So, he depending on your scoring format, of course, but he's been spectacular for fantasy football. Chris Hogan is the guy behind Sammie Coates who I'm most interested in. I want a piece of that New England offense, and we saw Brandon LaFell. We talked about the garbage can yesterday. Brandon LaFell, even he succeeded in that role when he was given the chance.
Do you pick up Brandon LaFell
after his big game? No.
Yeah, you're kind of chasing the points there.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick him up. So let's move over to running back. Actually, before we move over to running back, I want to thank today's sponsor, Nature Box. Look, we all talk about we want to make healthier choices. We're tempted by the chips and the cookies and the junk food, and then we eat it. We all want to make healthy decisions. You know what I've done, Jason?
Tell me.
I've worked out 4 days in a row.
That's incredible.
I'm turning my life around. And you know who's helping me do it?
Nature Box.
Because I'm snacking healthier. Look, Nature Box delivers tasty snacks made with simple ingredients right to your door. So I think, I'm kind of hungry. Where should I check the pantry? No, I'm going to check the front door. Because Nature Box is sending me stuff. They have over 100 delicious snacks to choose from. My personal favorites. You want some spicy sriracha popcorn, Granny Smith apple fruit chews, some Kung Pao pretzels. If you'll notice, I like things a little spicy.
You're a spicy guy, Mike.
Thanks. One of the best things about Nature Box is the variety. They're constantly adding new snacks based on the customer feedback and the food trends. And you know what? If you try a snack you don't like it, Nature Box is going to replace it for free. This is what I need you to do, Foot Clan. Right now, Nature Box is offering you 2 free snacks when you go to naturebox.com/footballers. Avoid the guilt. Go to naturebox.com/footballers to get 2 delicious snacks for free.
That's a good deal.
The only thing better than good snacks is free snacks. This offer won't last long, so get your snacks today. That's naturebox.com/footballers for the 2 free snacks.
Yeah, and we also need to thank our longtime sponsor of this show, Harry's. Harry's razors. Look, a lot of people have used them from our show. They love them. You know, look, Harry's is known for its blades. It's got that 5-blade, really, really nice razors. Andy's and myself, we use them all the time. My wife loves them for her legs. But I don't actually think, personally, these great blades, I don't think that's my favorite part of Harry's. For me, it's the handle. The weighted, nice, like, you know, you buy those other blades in the store, and they just feel like they came off of some chintzy, you know, manufacturing line. Harry's blades and their handles are amazing. You got to check them out. So here's what you need to do. Harry's is so confident the quality of their blades, they're going to send you their free trial set, which comes with a razor, that handle I'm talking about, 5 blades, 5-blade cartridges, shave gel, all for free when you sign up for a shave plan. All you do is pay shipping. So here's what you need to do. You go to harrys.com right now, and if you enter the promo code footballers at checkout, you will get an extra post-shave balm added to your order for free. That's harrys.com, promo code footballers.
All right, let's take a look at some of the running backs. It's mighty thin. Thin. This, which, you know what? That's actually –
it's great news.
For teams that need to improve, that stinks. For the contenders, that's great news because that means we didn't have any devastating – running back injuries.
Yeah, I was going to say for NFL players.
Yeah,
that's great news. No harm befell any humans, which is always great. Now you did have we've alluded to it already. You did have the previous injury of Charles Sims becoming a bigger deal.
Yes,
and you had Jacquizz Rodgers very involved. Now, do you pick him up though going on a bye week?
He's on the bye week. I'm not sure if I do. If you have Doug Martin, then maybe I consider it just because you want to protect yourself. So let's say you had Charles Sims, you're like, oh, I'm riding this out. If Doug Martin is not back after the bye week, you're going to want somebody who you can plug into your starting roster. So that would be the situation where I consider it. But other than that, I'm probably leaving him alone. If he's just going to go onto my bench as a stash and hope, there's other guys who I'd rather stash and hope right now.
Yeah, so let's say you need a play, right? Because there are a lot of teams, one of my teams included. I've got the McKinnon, Adrian Peterson combo, and they are on bye. This week, Minnesota and Tampa Bay, those are the only 2 teams on bye. So if you've got those running backs, you might need a spot start. Who is it that you would pick up that you would say, if I have my choice of starting only 1 week, I only need a 1-week play, who would that guy be to get the most points this week, Mike?
So there's 3 guys that are at the top of the list. James Starks, assuming Eddie Lacy, if he's going to miss some time. And look, Eddie Lacy's a bigger guy. I mean, so I feel like an ankle injury is going to take a little bit longer to heal up. Then you have Bilal Powell, who is growing in usage up in New York, and James White. So those are the 3 names that I gravitate towards. And I believe I would go with James White.
That would be mine as well, 100%.
We saw the offense turn things around. Now, LeGarrette Blount was coming into that game injured, and I don't think he left any worse for wear, but they might be trying to limit his workload after he got about, I believe the number was 10,002 carries.
Yeah, and I might have been 3.
10,003?
Yeah, I believe
in those first 4 games. So maybe they're giving him some well-deserved rest, but James White, you don't pick him up because for the rushing stats, only 5 for 26, but 4 for 63 through the air. That's spectacular numbers. You have over 80 total yards from scrimmage. That's what I would want from a guy I can grab off the waivers.
Dion Lewis last year made huge waves of noise in the fantasy community. Even in standard leagues, I think in PPR he was a top 5 guy. I want to say in standard when he was in and played full games in those weeks, I think he was the number 7 back.
Yeah,
but
he was
did
cruising.
Most of his damage through the air, just like James White did. And one of the things people don't realize is that the passing production, James White versus Dion Lewis, James White actually outproduced Dion Lewis. He just doesn't have the same ability on the ground. But if he could add 20, I mean, last week he got 26 yards on the ground. Right? You add that to the 63 yards. That's a great game from a running back.
Completely agree.
And I think James White will see the end zone through the air several times this year. James White, to me, is a great pickup now. I can play him this week. I can play him next week. And we should also throw the name of Dion Lewis out there. He's only owned in 18% of leagues. Now he's still a couple weeks before he's eligible to come back, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to see Dion Lewis before week 10.
Yeah, exactly. He should be eligible to return
I think
before he returns.
Correct.
Meaning he's not ready to go. He's not at practice right now, ready to go, just not eligible to come back. He's still recovering from his injury, which makes James White all the better play. But with Tom Brady back, if you need a guy, I mean, I'm fine picking up both of these guys and taking up 2 roster spots to secure one start-worthy running back every single week.
So the Patriots have the week 9 bye. I believe Lewis is eligible week 8. So that's why it makes sense for them to not rush him back that week, give him a couple more weeks of practice, and then week 10, unleash the beast.
Yeah, Bilal Powell, I think, is another spot start that is worthy. We've seen the Arizona Cardinals. He plays on Monday night in Arizona. His usage has gone up. Last week, he got 6 receptions. The week prior to that, he got 6 receptions.
Uh-oh.
And the week prior to that,
do it.
He got 6 receptions. He's the mark of the beast. No. But Bilal Powell,
the mark of the beast for your opponent.
yeah,
Am I right?
Hopefully not. He's playing the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, yeah, I take it back.
But the Arizona Cardinals have been able to constantly – they blitz. And the way you beat a blitz is that screen game. We've seen plenty of teams do that. Bilal Powell is fantastic in that role. He has been productive the last few weeks. I'm not expecting anywhere near, an RB1, or even I don't think I can rely on like that top end RB2 value. But I don't think Bilal Powell's going to go out there and get you, 0.5 points. If you're in any kind of PPR setting, if he gets another 6 passes, you've either got 3 to 6 points, depending on your scoring format, established, and then you get all the yards, you get that touchdown opportunity. And I think Matt Forte, who has been hurt with the ribs, he's not going to have a huge game against the Arizona rushing D.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Speaking of another PPR running back, Bobby Rainey continues to look very Bobby Rainey, which is when he's on, he is very on. He looks spectacular. You combine that with the Giants' offense is a mess.
Yeah, they are.
Eli does not look comfortable at all. We were on the way to lunch yesterday, and what are the 2 adjectives? We said, how does Eli look?
He looks confused.
Yes.
He looks scared.
He does.
Those 2 things, like when you watch him play right now, it's like he's never been in this offense.
That's very bizarre.
And it's so weird because the last couple years, he's gotten more and more used to this offense.
He's on the best 2 years of his life before this.
And now you add in 2 more valuable weapons, and Victor Cruz coming back, who seems okay, and Sterling Shepard, a great incoming rookie. And now, how much of this should we put the blame on? Look, he just went to Minnesota, and they went to Green Bay. Those aren't exactly easy matchups.
Sure, he went to Green Bay, especially Green Bay was coming off the bye. They had the extra time to scheme, but I have great concerns now for Eli. People are asking, what do I do with Eli Manning? I'm moving on. I'm finding a different option.
I dropped
off my
him
waiver wire
in our league of record this morning.
But Bobby Rainey getting just tons of targets because Eli makes his first read. Maybe he makes the second read, and then he'll spike the ball on the ground or he'll dump it off to Bobby Rainey. A couple names to monitor just in case they were actually dropped. Jonathan Stewart is available in about right around 25% of leagues. T.J. Yeldon as well. And then speaking of stashes, people have given up on Derrick Henry. They have dropped him. He is available in over 40% of leagues.
I have said this for weeks, but I think he is the best handcuff.
He's a real one.
He's a real one. He's the best handcuff to own.
He's a Sam Elliott.
If he was dropped in our league, I would be willing to drop plenty of other guys who can produce now. Like take a T.J. Yeldon, right? T.J. Yeldon, I could actually put in and he could produce.
Produce
probably more than Derrick Henry, but the
Maybe.
upside is not there. I'm gonna throw one other stash name out. We were just talking about the Giants, and they need something to fix their situation. And we saw that they were much better with Rashad Jennings in there, as they were expected. He's available in a quarter of leagues right now. And look, if he might be back this week. If he's not, he's going to be available in even more than a quarter of leagues because people just can't keep holding on to injured running backs. And so he's a name that if you've got the room on your bench, you've got a larger bench, or you've got garbage on your bench, he's worth picking up.
Sure. So we got the tight end situation is not the best right now. You had Cameron Brate, who we were all buying into because the targets were there.
Huge disappointment.
The end zone targets are there, and then he gets 3 targets.
That was a weird game
in a
last
winnable
night.
matchup for tight ends. Tight ends have been taking advantage of the Panthers secondary all year long, but not Cameron Brate. Eric Ebron has been dropped in a lot of places because of the injury.
I was shocked to see that Eric Ebron was only owned in 46% of leagues. He is a talented tight end. You saw last game when he was out that they really could have used him. And he's been involved. He's been successful. He's involved in the red zone. This week he's going up against LA, who has been middle of the pack against the tight end. Now, do you expect Eric Ebron to be back this week? That's the real question.
I think so.
Eric Ebron to me.
Sorry for that. That is hard-hitting analysis right there. I think so.
Eric Ebron to me is a guy that I would rather have Eric Ebron than a spot start where I'm saying, okay, the matchup for so-and-so is okay. I can play them this week because I think Eric Ebron in most weeks is playable. And if you're in that streaming position, I'd rather have a guy like Eric Ebron than say Hunter Henry.
Sure. Charles Clay is an interesting name where the last couple weeks he's getting more involved. 5 for 73 last week with the 5 targets. The Buffalo Bills have really turned around their season since they got rid of Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator. That seemed to rally the troops up in Buffalo, and now they get a matchup like you talked about, San Francisco. Or we talked about this off air, but San Francisco has to go across the entire continental United States. Not easy. We saw Buffalo handle Arizona making that trip, so I would not be shocked to see Buffalo handle San Francisco. Jesse James continues to impress. He had 8 targets. He had that wide open touchdown where you had somehow a gargantuan monster of a man is left uncovered.
The only person within 5 yards, and this was like from the 2-yard line. So it was like how do you even have any area
I don't know.
wide open? That was a great play call. Jesse James to me is probably like if you're looking at the tight ends that are widely available, right? I mean, you could go get Coby Fleener or Gary Barnidge in about a quarter of leagues. You can get Eric Ebron in half of leagues. But if you're like, look, I'm in a competitive league, these guys are taken. Of the guys that are mostly available in 3/4 of leagues, Jesse James is the guy I want. You've seen him. He's got 3 touchdowns on the year already. He's involved enough in the passing game. I do think he's a little bit more touchdown dependent, but he's a key cog in this, and I think he's getting more and more involved in the offense. This week specifically, he's going to Miami. That's a winnable matchup.
Miami.
So, Jesse James is a decent pickup.
Sure.
But
what about the concerns of Ladarius Green, who the forgotten man, Ladarius Green, a huge offseason signing for Pittsburgh, had the weird, is he going to retire?
Is it an ankle? Is it a concussion?
Yeah, we never got clarity on that. What we do know is Ladarius Green was on the PUP list, which means he's eligible to return in week 7. That doesn't mean he will be back, but he's at least eligible.
I would give, the percentage odds of him returning in week 7 a solid 10%. Because mystery always means that there's something you might not know. But I have heard no rumors of him being on track. There were many more rumors of him not playing this year than being ready in week 7.
Rumors of him not playing again.
Right, exactly. So for me, I'm not very scared off by Ladarius Green, and I'm certainly not going to be scared off of him in the sense that what it costs you to get Jesse James is nothing.
Sure.
You can let the waivers clear and then just go pick him up, or you can bid $1 or $2 and you'll get Jesse James. So if Ladarius Green comes back, just cut him. Who cares?
I will say Ladarius Green says there is a good possibility he's able to return when first eligible.
Great.
Said, I don't want to jinx it, but my ankle's feeling good.
How's your head?
I don't know about the head. All right, a couple defenses that are great, we think are great stream picks based on matchup. You have the Lions at home versus the Case Keenum-led Rams.
That's okay, but the Lions' defense to me, I like
the
I like being at home against Case Keenum's led
yes,
Rams.
The matchup is good. I would agree that the defense is not the strongest.
The number one pickup, if they are still available, they might have been picked up this last week because they had a decent matchup. But Buffalo, to me, they've been on fire. They are playing at home against San Francisco. There is no way that they don't get what's over under here on interceptions? 2?
I would put it at 2.
Yeah, I would put it at 2. What's the over under on sacks? Like 4?
Yeah, the Bills are a great play, but they're only available in about 20% of leagues, so lower percentage chance.
How about the Titans?
The Titans versus the Browns. I think I like that more than the Lions.
I do. I certainly like the Titans more than the Browns have been prone to turnovers.
Who's playing quarterback for them?
And that is a great reason.
I don't know.
That is a great reason to play the Titans. And look, the Titans defense, they've been okay.
Yes.
And shockingly, people don't realize this. The Titans defense was good last year. They won 3 games, and you never see a team that wins 3 games with a good defense. But they were actually, 16th or 17th in most categories last year, which I wouldn't say is great. But you're certainly not, like last year's Jacksonville Jaguars or the other teams that won very few games. And so you're at home against some amalgamous quarterback situation, and you've got a good defense. I like the Titans quite a bit.
Sure, and then the last one I put in here, Steelers at Miami, taking on Ryan Tannehill I think he's imploding. I think we talked about this, that I don't think Ryan Tannehill will be long for Miami. There's all the rumors of the benching. The fan base wants him benched. So
this week,
it's not a terrible play.
Look, I hate to say this out loud, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a pretty good week this week. Fantasy-wise.
Because of garbage.
Yes,
so.
Because of garbage time, they're going to be down a lot.
I can agree with that.
But that certainly doesn't secure your NFL job.
Right.
The only other thing I would say on quarterbacks, Blake Bortles, Carson Palmer. Those guys are guys that are not usually available. Because Carson was out with an injury and Blake Bortles was out with a concussion, they had to be dropped by certain owners. I know Carson Palmer is available in a quarter of leagues. I would pick him up. But more importantly,
let's talk about what's that?
I was going to say the quarterbacks who are owned in very few leagues.
Yes.
That you would start this week.
Okay. Yeah, but I got to do this.
Breaking news.
I didn't put the drop on the board for this section, so that's what you get.
What? Wait. The breaking news is that we don't have the right segment.
That's
name?
right, America.
Oh man!
Breaking news.
Andy, Andy, come back to us. Oh.
I can just keep hitting fun drops.
Oh my! Oh man!
This is Andy's worst nightmare coming true.
This is just wacky FM DJ time.
All right, what that drop should have been was the full stream ahead drop, where we are going to give you streaming quarterbacks, and these are quarterbacks that are available. We usually try to keep it at least 40 to 50% in your leagues that you can pick up off your waiver wire. We think they have a good matchup, and that you can just plug them in and feel very confident starting it. I'll kick it off to you, Jason. You can go first.
That's the opposite of kicking. I'm going to kick it off. I guess like a kickoff that would work.
I bet you feel dumb now.
I do. That's what a kickoff is.
That's good because I felt dumb 3 seconds ago.
All right, that's fine. I'll give mine. My quarterback streamer this week. We've talked about him a lot the last few weeks. In fact, he has either been the streamer of the week for one of us, or
a start
of the week for one of us since he has taken over. We alluded to it a minute ago that since he has taken over, he's the number 3 quarterback. What?
Tearing it up.
What world are we living in where Brian Hoyer has been a very good fantasy quarterback for these last 3 weeks? Since he took over, he has averaged 338 yards and 2 touchdowns a game with 0 interceptions. When we look for a streaming candidate, when you're out there mining the waiver wire, looking at what Vegas says, looking at the defense, looking at the offense, we are trying to aim for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? If you get 250 yards and 2 touchdowns,
you are happy.
You're set. If you drafted a solid team and didn't take that quarterback early, that's what you need every week, and he is blowing that away. Now, he plays the Jaguars this week, and I will say this, the Jaguars defense, they have been averaging about like 220 yards given up per week.
Through the air.
Yes, to the quarterback specifically, which is really good for the Jaguars. But I think what you're going to see here is a game very similar to like Chicago last week. They hadn't given up 250 yards through the air yet. And Andrew Luck comes in. The game script gets out of control. And this is, the Blake Bortles versus the Hoyer. You're going to have points on the clock. The over-under in Vegas is 47. There should be enough points scored. You saw Cameron Meredith with the good game. I think he is a fine stream of the week. I'd be happy to start him.
I love it. I'm staying in those flames. Those are white, blue, hot flames with Brian Hoyer.
You got three in a row. You're not chasing points anymore. You're just playing a hot quarterback.
I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. And look, Dallas is going up into Green Bay. I know that Green Bay shut down Eli Manning. They were coming off the bye week, and the Giants right now are one-dimensional. We talked about this on the show that the Packers defense was set up in a position that said, you want to run the ball? Go ahead, because we are not defending the run, and the Giants still could not run because their team just cannot do that. You know who can run the ball?
The Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys and Zeke Eazy-E Elliott, who's had the best game of his career last week. So you throw all that together. I think that Dak Prescott, who has been playing great himself, he hasn't been blowing it up for fantasy. But why I like Dak is I think that he is a safe play this week. We talked about the 250 and 2. I think Dak is very safe to give you that or the equivalent. He's run in 3 touchdowns this year. He's not running a ton, but when he's near the end zone, if nothing is there, he'll run it in.
Yeah.
So I think that Dak, even without Dez, is still just a safe play for that will not blow up your team. He'll give you a nice floor for the quarterback.
Yeah, I like this because there's almost no way that they do what they did against the Giants, which is just basically run 2 deep safeties the whole game.
You can't.
They're not doing that against the Cowboys. They're gonna stack that box and try to stop Eazy-E. And when they do that, Dak is going to be able to throw on them. He's been very good this year. I like that. I'm going to throw out one more. Andy did not give us a name. He's on vacation. We're not going to make him do it. But I know Andy well.
I like this name.
I know,
but I don't have the courage to put my name.
Sure, well,
on this
is why we're putting Andy's name.
Because I said I'm done. I'm done with this guy. And then he was the quarterback one last week.
So yeah, Andy is going to, unbeknownst to him, pick Marcus Mariota. He was very high on Mariota early in the offseason. Things, the tea leaves, he got off of that. But we're not chasing last week's points, right? Last week, Marcus Mariota as the number 1 quarterback, it was weird. He only had 163 passing yards, but you saw him use his legs. He had 4 total touchdowns.
163?
Yeah. But you saw him with 4 total touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, plenty of rushing yards. If you just extrapolate the rushing yards into passing yards, then he had a great passing game.
Sure.
But this week he takes on, at home, the Cleveland Browns, who are averaging 300 yards and 2.6 touchdowns a game. 2.6 might not seem like a lot because you have those big games where it's like, oh, there's 4 touchdowns. 2.6 is an average this deep in. That's a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, that's great.
Just to quarterbacks. Not total. Just quarterbacks are averaging 2.6 touchdowns against them. So Mariota, another safe play, I think, if you want to stream someone.
So that's going to wrap up the show. Jason, we did it. Whew, we did it.
Andy will be back tomorrow.
We made it through the 2 shows without the
I'll say this,
the legitimate host of the show.
I am very disappointed. Very, very disappointed in our lack of falling apart. I wanted.
Well, I mean, we had a little moment here with the drop.
No, I'm not saying mistakes. I wanted to just, go. Let's go talk about whatever we want.
Oh, yeah, derail.
Derail. But we're professionals here. We work too hard on, the research in here to not talk about the research we know.
Sure. So a shout-out to fantasyjocks.com, where winners go.
That's where I'll be
going. If you listen to this
Mike.
show, you got to be a winner, so go to fantasyjocks.com. You use the promo code FOOTBALLERS. Get yourself one of those big old belts like Jason has. We'll see you tomorrow. Andy will be back.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.